Hi everyone. If you're watching this before class, so proud of you for paying attention to directions. So hopefully you've already opened up solving equation notes. Remember when you're taking notes and I ask you to pause to try it on your own, please remember to do that. Remember to be listening and writing down at the same time. Don't just watch or don't just write down. Please watch, listen, and do the problems with me. All right, here we go. We're going to start with a warm-up because solving inequalities is very, very similar to solving equations. So I want you to pause again, complete this warm-up, and see how you are doing at solving equations. All right, so let's go through these. So here is my variable. I wanted it side by itself, so it was subtracted, so I had to add. And then it was multiplied, so I had to divide. Did not drop my negative, so 60 over negative 3 is not a negative 60. It is a negative 20. Okay, then for this problem, we needed to use the distributive property first. Did you remember to distribute, and did you drop your negative, or is it still there? So since it was minus 20, we'd had to do the additive inverse first. To add 20, these are opposites or additive inverses, so they cancel out. So we are left with our negative 4x. Because we did this over here, we had to do the same over there. And then it was multiplied by negative 4, so we had to divide by negative 4. So x is going to be a negative 25. And this one was a little trickier. I want to remind you about fractions. They're going to be on your assessment for this. So remember if you have a fraction as a coefficient, we need to multiply by something that is going to get us to 1. So negative 3/5 times negative 5/3, they're multiplicative inverses. So that's what we had to multiply by. The 5's cancel out, the 3's cancel out, the negatives cancel out, so we're left with 1. And because we had to multiply by negative 5/3 over here, you had to do the same thing over here. 6 times negative 5 is negative 30. And the reason it's 6 instead of 18 is I went ahead and simplified first. All right, lastly, when you have fractions in your problem that are not like denominators, it might be beneficial to multiply by something that clears the fractions. So 2 and 5 have a common denominator of 10. So I multiplied every single thing by 10. So that left me with negative 1/2 of 10 is negative 5. 1/5 of 10 is 2. So then I just solved, and then don't forget you have to multiply the number over here as well by 10, so that's 100. So then negative 5 plus 2 is a negative 3, so x was multiplied by negative 3. So I divided by negative 3. 100 divided by negative 3 is negative 33 1/3. So that just did not seem right to me. So I plugged it in. Remember, you should always be checking your work. Always take what you have as an answer, plug it back in, substitute it back in to see if it makes a true statement. So I did so. I took my negative 100 thirds and I plugged it back in here to get this. And indeed, 106 minus 115ths is 10. So we did that work correctly. All right, let's move on. Oh, before we do, I noticed that I had changed the problem, but then forgot to change it down here. These were inequality symbols. And so really the only difference between solving equations and solving inequalities is when we are multiplying or dividing by a negative number. Remember, if you multiply or divide by a negative number in an inequality, you have to reverse the symbol versus preserve the symbol. So that's what you're going to be practicing today. That's the major part of this lesson. So again, what I just said is when you are multiplying or dividing by a negative number, the inequality symbol switches. So the inequality symbol is reversed. Reversed. I also want to remind you when you're graphing inequalities, you're going to graph using a closed circle for if it actually includes that point as well. So a greater than or equal to or less than or equal to. but you are going to use an open circle for a less than or a greater than, and I'll show you what I mean. All right, so we're just going to solve and graph some inequalities, and remembering to preserve or reverse the symbol if we need to. So here I'm going to draw my line just like I would if it was an equation. It's minus 7, so to undo that I have to do the additive inverse of adding 7. So now, usually I write underneath, but I'm going to bring it over here. So now x is greater than 27. Remember that the only time you reverse the symbol is if you're adding or multiplying or dividing by a negative number. So we preserved the symbol. So now to graph it, I'm going to put 27 right in the middle, 29, 31, and I'm just going to number. And I'm skipping just to make it look neater, but you can number every single line if you would like. So I am really numbering by ones, but I'm only writing every other one. 19. Okay, so now this is what I was talking about. This x is any number that is greater than 27. So it could be 28, 29, 30, 31, anything that's greater than that, but it does not include 27. It includes 27.1, 27.001, so all the way to 27, but not including it. So to make sure that our reader of the graph knows it can be anything just past 27, we're going to use an open circle at 27. So that's letting our reader know it does not include 27, but it's anything greater than. And we're going to draw that arrow all the way up. Okay, so anything greater than 27. All right, let's try the next one. Here's my variable. Something is added to it, so I'm going to subtract. So now I'm saying y is greater than or equal to 37. So that means it could be 37 and anything greater than 37. So let me move this up quickly so we have more room. Now I'm going to put, again, you can start where you want. I guess I'm going to do 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40. So again, I'm numbering my ones, but I'm skipping, and your graph, you might number it a little differently than me. I just want to make sure that we have some numbers before and after the number that we are going to circle. 46 and 48. Okay, so now we're going to put a closed circle, because now it can include 37. So right between 36 and 38 is 37, and it can include 37, so we're putting a closed circle showing our reader that it can be 37 and anything greater than 37. So my arrow is going towards the greater numbers. Okay, so now what I'd like you to do is pause and see if you can complete these two-step inequalities and graphing. Remember when you preserve and reverse the symbol. See if you get this right. All right, how did you do on this first one? So I used my inverse operations to get x on a side of the inequality symbol by itself. It said x can be any number that is less than 10. So this is the less than symbol. X is any number less than 10. So I knew that I was going to be going this way with my arrow. And I put an open circle because my answer does not include 10, but it could be anything that is exact, like 9.99999999999. So all the way up to 10, but not including 10. Okay? Think of a shortcut that you could to get to know which way your arrow is going to be going. Here's a hint. Look at this and look at this. Look at this and look at this. All right, pause if you have not done the second one and be careful. Remember when we need to reverse the symbol. All right, so before I graph it, I wanted just to make sure that you and I have the same thing. So it was minus 27, so we had to add 27. Negative 81 plus 27 positives gets me negative 54. Remember, unlike signs, you subtract, there's more negatives. It was multiplied by a negative 9, so we had to divide by a negative 9. So that left x on one side and 6 on the other. And this is where you have to think back to our activity yesterday. Because we were dividing by a negative number, we had to reverse, not preserve like we did up here. We had to reverse the symbol. So now it's saying that x is greater than or equal to 6. So I'm going to find my 6, and because it is an equal to, in other words, it can include 6, we're going to put a closed circle. And it's greater than or equal to 6, so it's all the numbers. It could be 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way forever and ever that way. Now, I said, can you find a way that you can maybe use the symbol to see which way your arrow is going to be going? Are you seeing a similarity here? That's a shortcut, but only works if x is on the left side. All right, let's continue. So here the only difference between what we just did and these problems are these are a little bit more difficult because you have to remember how to deal with the distributive property and fractions, but now you don't have to graph them. You're just solving them, remembering to reverse the symbol if you're multiplying or dividing. So I want you to try these, and then I will go over them. All right, the first two, pretty basic. We just used our inverse operations like you've been doing with equations, and we didn't have to reverse because you were not multiplying or dividing by a negative number, so we had to preserve the symbol. Here I saw fractions. I didn't feel like dealing with the fractions, so the denominators were 3, so if I multiplied everything by 3, I would maintain that equality, but I got rid of my fractions. So here the 3's canceled, so 8h. Here the 3's canceled, minus 4. And here there isn't a 3, so you just have to multiply 4 times 3 is 12. Don't forget to do that. Biggest mistake that people make. All right, so it's minus 4, so we have to add 4. We're not dividing by a negative number, so we preserve our symbol. Okay, try the next. Okay, so the next two. So with decimals, we could clear the decimals, but I think for right now there's so much going on, we're just going to leave the decimals alone. I did the distributive property. It was a negative, so I had to add it back in. Use a calculator if you want to for the arithmetic. It was multiplied, so we divided, and because we were dividing by a negative number, we had to reverse the symbol. So instead of less than, it is going to be greater than. All right, so this next one, as I started to say, did not work out nice with numbers, but that's okay because life sometimes has messy numbers. So the first thing I did was I did the distributive property. And then I saw these fractions in here, and I did not want to have to deal with the fractions. So the common denominator of 2 and 10 is 10. So I multiplied everything by 10, every single term by 10. So now I had a negative 35x that I could combine with 1x. And again, the reason it's negative 35 is if we cancel out two factors from 10, that left 5. And so 5 times negative 7 is a negative 35. So I have a negative 35x. The 10's canceled out, so that's why I had a negative 1x. So negative 35x minus 1x is a negative 36x. I also multiplied by numbers by 10. So negative 35 times 10 is negative 350, and 7 times 10 is 70. So now it was minus 350, so I had to add it back on. And then I had to divide by negative 36. So because I was dividing by a negative number, I reversed the symbol, and that's where I get my not so nice number of a repeating decimal. So it was negative 11 and 2/3. So I just left it, because I'm assuming you guys did as well, in decimal form, so negative 11.67 or negative 11.6 repeating. Okay, hopefully this gives you enough examples that you can work on your assignment. Make sure that you, in class, are using that on-demand resource of myself. If you come in with this, you can use your notes. You can get help from me on your assignment so you don't have to struggle so much at home. All right, thanks. We out.